What's up, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mystic Raven. All right, guys. I actually got asked by a couple of players. Hey, Mystic, can you do like some testing? With the champion system a little bit more, and just kind of play with it and show us a couple of different scenarios going on and with some target dummies because I have the target dummies on my PS4. I just haven't set them up yet, and I'm still working on trying to get those stones to create my other one. But I haven't got it set up yet. But the test server will actually gives me an opportunity here to actually show you guys kind of the new system and the new diminishing rates and everything that's going on, how to calculate your champion points without getting onto a calculator, and just gives me this opportunity is basically is what it's doing. So I'm on the Magic and Nightblade here. I'm not going to be running an entire DPS rotation or anything like that. I'm just kind of showing you guys the new system. Unfortunately, I was limited with my gear selection, so we're running Mother Sorrow 5-piece stacked with spinners. The reason I opted to select spinners for this test is the added penetration. Okay, so we know that we have to have penetration, right? But we don't ever typically know how much. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of tests here, just to kind of give you guys an overview of what's going on and keep in mind what you have on stats. So a Magic and Nightblade with spinners gives us 3,861, right, guys? When I go into light armor passive, we're going to get concentration, which gives us another additional 4,884. So keep that in mind, right? Then on top of it, we're going to duplicate, because I'm just going to be doing like my builder and my spam just in this test to kind of show you guys, and then I'll throw on a dot and show you what's going on there. But just because we're not going through a full rotation, a lot of people like the Ellie Drain. We're going to apply the Ellie Drain. Why? Because it's going to give us Major Breach. That's going to reduce their spell resistance by an additional 5,280. So we're going to keep in mind that Ellie Drain is going to be applied. Okay? The only thing we lack is the Minor Breach. Okay? So as a Nightblade, I don't have the Minor Breach. So that's the only thing I'm going to be missing in this test. But you got to take that into consideration as well when you're testing this stuff typically. But for the sake of this, we're just going to do it like that. Okay, so now we're going to go into the champion points. And the first thing that you're going to see is I have no erosion currently, right? So I'm bumping Elfborn into 21.55 as of now. I have Elemental Expert at 14. I'm going to stack it to show you guys what happens. And currently I have Master of Arms at 23% as well, knowing that there's diminishing returns. But as you guys can see, I have no erosion currently, 0. So the only penetration I have is what's going on currently. And I'll hit one time with and one time without. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I don't want to use any Ellie Drain. Okay? I'm just going to hit this a couple of times. That's the regular skeleton. And I'm going to use the robust here too, because I have to compare these numbers. Okay, now next thing I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. So I'm not worried about this because I hit them different times. But what I'm going to be taking a look at is the max amount of damage and the average. Okay, so the average amount of damage I was pushing out was 14,370. Right? That's my average. This is my max amount I did per hit, but this was the average per hit on crit. Okay? When I take a look at this, it's about the same. 15,007, 15,007, right? 13,4, and then, one second. And this one was 14,3. So as you guys can see, I did, so 15.7, 15.7 on a robust, right? So I'm hitting the max amount that I can. But on here, my average was lower on the normal. So what we're going to go ahead and do now, we're going back into the champion system, and I'm going to take away from my Elfborn. Going to drop this down to about 15. We're going to allocate into more penetration. Now, this should actually increase given the fact that we don't have, guess what, minor breach. Even though we're going to be losing on the crit damage, we should see, you know, the difference here. So we're going to go ahead. Now keep in mind, guys, I didn't add the major breach yet. Okay. Okay. Let's go in. So 16.15, but our average has dropped. Our max increased, but our average dropped because we're critting less. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to apply the elemental drain. Same thing. Now you see that 18.1. Same thing over here. Okay, now we have 18.1. So now when we take a look over here, the average on all of them were about the same, but we're going to go ahead to normal. 18.139, 16. Now see, this is where I have too much penetration, guys. When you see this number exactly the same across the board, that means your base, you're losing DPS on base damage. You're at 100% penetration. All right, this is a bad thing. This means too much pen, right? When you see that, I can't go past this point. This is my threshold currently. Okay, now on the boss, I'm hitting up for the max of my base, but my average is this because the penetration and the other factors in my crit all play a very important role with this number. But when I see this, I want to drop down a little bit, not too much. So we're going to make that adjustment. Okay. Just a few points. Okay, now once again, I'm going to add the breach. Okay. Okay. Pop this. Okay. So now we've dropped too low on the normal. So we're going to need a few more points. And it's mind staking. Now, but look at the robust. We have about the perfect amount of penetration in that scenario. We're hitting a 100 for 100% of crit. Everything's clicking. But we're going to hit it again. I hate the targeting in this sometimes. Okay. We go here again. Notice I'm kind of keeping a distance because I don't want to proc anything on top of them to influence the... But the only thing I'm looking at is the funnel health. Okay, that's the average. Okay, I got 100 time crit on that target, which is crazy to me. Hold on. I don't want to crit all the time. I'm trying to hit this thing for a base. Come on. Okay, there we go. Alright, we're going to stop it. Alright, that looks better. Crit percentage is low, average, everything. So I want to get kind of even, but I want to push out a little bit more damage. We're going to also go back in. So we're going to now take just a smidge off of this. And this new system wants to be a whatever. Reallocate just a little bit. Now, keep in mind, guys, my swords, this is not the right configuration for me at all. So I have precise and precise. So my crit value is well above what it should be. So, in my opinion, for me personally. Now, see the increase? The base damage is going up. But the crit value isn't. Okay. Now, what I want to do, take a look. All right. Now, I'm going to go also ahead, and we're going to just stack everything into my penetration for a minute. Now, I'm going to look at stacked values and what they're going to do. Okay? So my main goal is to stack everything penetration. Give you guys the oversight of everything on stacks. Okay. So that's my number. I pulled away from my crit as well as you guys can see. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add all the penetration I can. Now you guys see that? Didn't affect my base, but guess what it did affect? My crit damage. My base damage goes up, but my crit's going to suffer. Okay, same thing over here. We got a little bit more of a robust target. Okay. Okay, the average is 12,983. Max is 16,624 for normal. 14,341. 16,624. That's the stack on that. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to completely take out of erosion. Everything. All gone. Now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to max out my elemental expert. Now I haven't actually done this one without any pen. I'm going to max out this, and I'll put the difference in Elfborn. And this is how I'll test for gauging on diminishing factors, besides, you know, doing the math as well, but... Now look. Notice something? There we go. No pen. Let's put in. Now keep in mind I have spinners on. That's a factor. And I have the breach. Okay. So the max amount of damage for funnels, 16.4. 16.4. With no pen and low crit. Now let's go on the other side of the board. So now what I want to do is I'm actually going to lower this. Now I'm not going to get ridiculous because I know that this is going to be a huge part of my base damage. But yeah. Nope. I'm telling you guys. And I want to get this to about 100 because I want to stack crit now. Oh, I already had 10 points in. Once again, no penetration. We're going to take this back up to an even 19. Now look, we've got the increase in crit damage, but our base has dropped from 10 to 9. 5 almost. But look at the crit damage increase. Okay. And I want to hit both targets because this is going to give me, you know, a pretty good average between the two. So I'm taking both of these targets, resistance into consideration and what I'm hitting for in each target. Alright. So 17.426 was the max on robust, average 13.8. 17.426. So the max is the same. Averages increase with the regular versus has actually dropped with the normal. So once again, my penetration is whatever. So now, like I said, I'm trying to stay unbiased here. I'm just testing a bunch of stuff here, guys. So I want you guys to see it. That's kind of what I just want to do with this. So I'm going to drop this down. And I'm going to stack in. I'm going to keep my Elfborn at 100. And we're going to stack up everything we can into these two. Then we'll do Master of Arms. And then I'll show you how I allocate the differences. Okay. That's pretty low, I'll be honest with you. Okay. Once again. Now that's a drop. That's a very serious drop. Without Master of Arms, that is serious reduction in some DPS. Being as low as it is, it's just adversely affecting it. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to keep this 100. But I'm going to sack this value. And we're going to drop this down. Because now I want to stack up over on the master. 1 point for a for 1 dinky%. There's no diminishing returns. I swear. All right, guys. All right, same thing. I'm gonna go ahead. Add the Ellie drain. Now, you guys see it here. I'm not making these numbers up. Alright. Alright. Now, let me go in here. 16.4, 14 average. 16.4, 14 average. On the average. Okay. So, there's another thing I want to do is we're going to do the split. The hypothesis of the split. Okay. So basically I'm going to take and evenly split all of my allocating points evenly as possible. Not even taking into consideration any of the percentage values. Because it sounds like a smart thing to do. When in doubt. When in doubt. And I'm just going to stay with these trees for now. Given the factor that I'm not working on my dot DPS, which is important. I'm going to tell you that. Okay. So I have 30 points to spare. Okay. I'll put 1 in there. And I want to put this one back up to 3. Because we already have pen from whatever. So we're at 19.47 with Master of Arms. 11.68 with Elemental Expert. Spell Erosion, 4,012. And Elfborn's at 19.47. Now, ideally, this does look good. Ideally speaking. Okay. So let's just see. I haven't even done this. Now look at that. Now that is a very, very nice amount of crit damage. Okay. Same thing. Apply the LA drain. Okay. And we're going to go over here. Average is 16 on a normal, max 18. We're dropped a little bit on the robust, 18.3. So these two values on the max is the same. So now I'm kind of curious now what I can do, given the fact that I know I have some pen, if I can drop this down just a hair. So let's kind of get this down, because this is what I'm thinking in the back of my head. So I'm going to drop this down to about 3. Right, guys? Alright. So, now, I know Elfborn crit is good. I don't really necessarily want to touch that. So what I want to do, I want to bring that up just a tidbit. And I'm going to put the remaining in here. So 18.3 was what we could be pushing at. By dropping the pen, let's see if we lose or if we gain it. And we've gained 1 point. Okay. We're going to work it over here. As you guys are seeing this. But look at our base, too. Okay. So let's go back in. Alright. Now we're at 100% crit. Why do I always keep hitting at 100%? What the heck, man? Hey, dude, I don't want to keep... Come here. I need a... I get him without one. Let's find out. Yeah. So I hit him one time without one. Okay. That's fine. Alright. Now. So. We saw we gained 1 point. So I'm going to go ahead and marginalize that just a little bit by taking... this up a hair of a fraction. And let's see if we gain. Okay, 18,334 is what we had. Once again, I'm going to apply. Oh, there we go. There we go, guys. Alright, alright. Alright. Now. There's that. Big time difference there, guys. And there's that. Now, what you're going to say, well, you put a couple more points in penetration. So, let's go ahead and we'll allocate a little bit more. Alright, guys. So, we don't want to take away from there. We'll just slightly bring this down. Not too much. Okay. You see it? We lost some. Not much, but we did. So, we'll try it over here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back into the champion system. And I'm just going to take 2 points away. Or I'm going to keep that around 3250. We'll take 4. I'm going to reallocate these 4 points up. And then I'm going to drop now. Well, actually, I'll wait. Now see, we're back up. So we're sitting at the ideal penetration value, right? And this is kind of important where you're going to be at. So first thing I want to do ahead and do is I want to calculate the amount of penetration we currently have. This is kind of where we're sitting ideally for pen. So light armor. So we're going to go in, and concentration sitting at 4,884. Okay, guys? Now, I don't have my calculator on me. I'm just doing this right off the whatever. We're looking at spinners. That's another 3,008. So 4,884. So we'll round it up to about 4.9. We'll round this up to, so let's say almost 4,000, 5,000. So we're slightly under 9,000 just there, give or take. Now we're going to go into champion points. Okay, so now we're going to deduct the 250 because we rounded up. So 9 plus 3, so we're sitting around 12,000 penetration. I'm not stacked heavily into my pen, but take in consideration, guys. Spell erosion's equation of the 3,250 is equivalent to almost minor breach, right? Given the fact minor breach. Sharpen, for example. Now, I do have a sharpened staff. And I don't have sharpened swords. So, sharpened staff is giving us 5,001, right? And we do not have that on. And the only reason I had that on to show you guys the value. All right, so there's 5,001, right, guys? And then we're looking at 3.8. Okay, so normally what I typically do is I use one sharpened sword, and if it's crafted, I'll use one sharpened, one Nirnholm, or one sharpened and one precise if it's drop, right? And then I also then will use a precise staff, typically, is what I like to use to keep my crit value up, because I have the 4,884, and then I also go ahead and put, between 2,000 to 3,000 into my erosion, knowing that major fracture, major breach is going to be applied, and minor fracture, minor breach is going to be applied, and that's the equivalent amount of numbers. So, once again, guys, there's that, okay? So, this is kind of how we figured this out. Now, typically I will keep about that amount of pen. Now, here becomes the issue. We've already figured all of this out for direct damage, but we have to keep in mind now that staff expert and thaumaturge now becomes factors, right? Now, this is stamina abilities. That doesn't pertain to us, but thaumaturge and staff expert does. So the only thing I never really want to do is drop the penetration, because penetration affects my damage on both fronts. So now I have to decide where I'm going to sack an Elfborn, Elemental Expert, which all my base damage derives from that, or Master of Arms. So the first thing I want to go ahead and do is probably drop my Elfborn, because now I have to sacrifice to gain in my other for like my rotation when I start like figuring out my rotation. So I'm going to start with like base numbers, right? So I might drop that down, get about 24 point allegation, and then of course I'm going to drop this down, not too much either. I want to keep about 21 almost, but now I got points to allocate in my thaumaturge. Now, if you're more dot-in heavy, you would definitely allocate way more points into this. I like to keep around 12 and 14%, but we're going to go ahead and drop that down to about 12. And now I can put some points into my staff expert because I'm going to be weaving. Now, if you're not a heavy weaver, you don't have to put a lot of points, but definitely you don't want to lose out too much on this to pick up thaumaturge. Right? Ideally speaking. Okay. Now I'm going to show you guys what we lost by reallocating a few points into those trees. Now you guys see it. We've lost some. Now, like I said, this is how I kind of do my test. And everybody's always going to be like, you know, why do you use the dot like that? Well, I'm grabbing the empower. I'm simulating all of these different buffs. And in fact, I'm gaining major sorcery, I'm gaining empower, and I'm using it towards my spam to see what my spam's max amount of damage can push out with the current configuration that I'm using. So when we go in here, now we've dropped. Okay. But now we've picked up some points in the thermaturge. So here becomes your issue here, guys. And I wanted to point this out. Show you guys the difference between all the stacked effects and what's going on and your penetration. And everybody's going to be like, oh, you know, and I'll get to another test to show, you know, the sharpening and hone when I get back on the PS4 in the near future. But honestly, guys, the base cannot exceed the amount of penetration. Okay, you know, that's a factor. You got to understand that you can put everything into penetration, but what you're doing is lowering the amount of base damage. So once I'm at 100% penetration, I lose the base value of damage output. When it comes to the champion system and how they've restructured it, you have to now ask yourself, what damage types are you doing more frequently? Sorry, my heater kicked on. I live in an old Victorian house, by the way. So what ends up happening, if I use more dots in my rotation than direct damage, I'm going to put more into thermaturge, right? It makes more sense. And typically with the Nightblade, that's more what you kind of want to lean between the thermaturge and the Master of Arms. So I could split the difference and pick up the two for a nice solid rotation. The one thing that's going to be a factor between both of them regardless is going to be Elemental Expert. So Elemental Expert has to stay at a pretty constant because it's going to be increasing your magic and your elemental damage regardless. So we've got the main thing you want to do is find your idea point of penetration, and given those factors. Now, if you're a stamina user, your main focal point really isn't into mighty as much as it is in piercing, depending on your armor sets. So if you're using Hundings versus Night Mothers, piercing is more allegation towards, you allegate more into piercing than mighty. But if you're using something like if you're using that's if you're using Hundings. If you're using Night Mothers, though, you might only need to put half that amount into piercing, and you'll be able to allocate more into mighty. So it offsets the difference because they're carbon copies of each other ideally, but what you're missing is that fifth trait of either weapon damage or penetration, and those are factors into your overall damage. Okay, so you guys want to keep that in mind, you know, how all of these things definitely play a role, especially with your weaving. If you're a stamina user, you might be animation canceling a lot more frequently with your weapon abilities. So physical weapon expert definitely plays a very more important role, where magicka users, they probably are just doing a light or a heavy and weave between their dot and rotation. So this becomes more significant to reduce the amount of staff expert and keep your magic damage high. So once again, guys, I just kind of wanted to go over this, and as you guys can see, the split across the board isn't ideal. Okay, so we're not evenly distributed at all, really. So, because we have to make adjustments accordingly to what we're doing in our build and take those into consideration. The diminishing return is a factor in maximizing your amount of damage. So, once again, I just kind of wanted to do this video, wanted to stay unbiased, kind of throw out some numbers, kind of do some tests, show you guys what's going on. If you have any questions or comments, please post below. I do want to thank you guys for watching, and once again and always, thank you. And have a nice day.